What happens when you put Rachel Riley and 16 variations of MJ from Big Brother 26 in a house? Well, pop a squat and crack open a cold one, because internet, I think I found the answer. Okay, that's not entirely true. MJ would at least have the conviction to break a tie and evict one of her closest allies. Who is winning Big Brother 27? Is it this person? Is it that person? What if I told you there is no winner? Not actually sure how that's possible, but this is the question I have been asking myself since the premiere episode, and normally after 1 week of live feeds, I sit down, I pop a squat, I crack open a cold one, and I really ask myself that question. Who is gonna win this season of Big Brother? And then I would normally begin to talk about that in a video titled The True Contenders for Big Brother 27. But if you were following along, you may have noticed that that video never materialized. And that's because I never made it. I did write a single tweet about a rough draft of Contenders that I wasn't very confident in, and then I asked myself, why? I have always been so confident, but this time something felt off. I had to have a heart-to-heart with myself and ask myself, why am I unable to rate this cast? In every previous season, going back to the first time I thought up this idea with Big Brother in 2012, it was effortless. It was easy. It was satisfying. So then I thought, what's different with this season? And I thought it was because I really felt like everyone could be a true contender. But then I realized it was the opposite of that. I can't find an individual to rate because I've rated them all. They are all equally at the bottom. There is no one I rate higher than anyone else. And that's what I would say if I was impersonating Dr. Will from Big Brother 7 All-Stars. But okay, so to pull from the Evil Doctor's quotes there, if you haven't seen it, go check out that speech of his. There is a bit of truth in that. I think this cast is the weakest strategic cast in Big Brother history, and that includes season 1, where the game didn't even exist. Not even trying to be hyperbolic for a headline. It is truly impressive how bad the BB27 cast all are as a collective at not being good at Big Brother. Get this, there are no masterminds, there are no frontrunners, there are no Machiavellian puppet masters who are calling the shots and need to be dethroned each week. There are no players, as far as I can tell, that are thinking beyond next week. There are no alliances, and it's about to be week 7, and we are over halfway into the season now. I've never seen anything like it. Even Survivor Gabon had alliances. A man on the block held a veto, didn't use it, and got voted out. No, I'm not actually making that up. This is not 2002, and that man was not Marcellus. This season is Big Brother 27 minus the 27. It's the prequel to Big Brother where there are no blueprints to consider. You know, people always say it's impressive what Dr. Will was able to accomplish in season 2 because there was nothing for him to work off of. But then I look at this cast and I wonder if maybe they're thinking the same thing. Take for example Zay, the first boot of the season. He asked ChatGPT how to win the game. And all I can wonder is this the future that AI has in store for us as it relates to this show? Could this season best be described as AI slop? Is Ainsley the mastermind after all? Guess we'll just have to keep watching the show. Either way, I do still want to talk about all of these sloppy people and try to deduce who I think could be a true contender if such a thing were possible. I mean, in all likelihood, somebody's going to win this season, so let's talk about that. Now, if you've never seen a True Contenders video, I usually will pick 4 names out of the cast, and those are the 4 that I think are the cut above the rest. These are the players I think could win this season, but given the timing of this video, usually I do that after week 1, when I've got a week of feeds under my belt. Not so much this time. This time I'm going to be doing it differently. I think I kind of have to. You know, in true Big Brother 27 fashion, I will pretend it's the first time I've ever done something like this. Instead of giving you my top 4 players to watch, I went back to the drawing board and flipped the script. I studied myself. What exactly makes me consider someone a frontrunner? I've been watching this show since 2010 with season 12, and I've watched something like 90% of the live feeds each season. I did have a job for a while, I swear. I've always had gut feelings about players early on. Years ago, I tried to map out that question of like what exactly goes into it with 4 key categories that I think make a great Big Brother player, that make a true contender to win a season. Now, those 4 categories were emotional intelligence, tactical awareness, threat level, and respectability. I think the best players should be able to score high in each of these 4 categories, and so for this season, I have decided to get as granular as possible to mathematically uncover who I think is the frontrunner. I have ranked all 12 of the remaining players as of right now for each of these categories and then added up their position to form an overall ranking. Is it perfect? I don't know. I mean, all of this is subjective, so I don't know what does even really matter. But I'm looking at the final list right now, and I don't exactly know how to feel about it, but I guess I can't argue with my own numbers. It's like arguing with a wall. Also, I do want to say that if you want to play along with me in this video to see how you might rank the cast based on these 4 parameters, feel free to rank the players still in the game alongside me and see what your list will look like. What does your mathematical gut tell you? Would you argue with yourself? Why is Riley at number 1? Speaking of Riley, let's jump over to the first category with emotional intelligence. What exactly is emotional intelligence? Well, you could Google it, but I will save you a moment and do it for you. It's the capacity to be aware of, to control, and to express one's emotions, and to handle interpersonal relationships judiciously and with empathy. That was a mouthful, so to break that down, I take it as you need to be self-aware of what you're feeling and why you are feeling that way. You need self-management to be able to manage your behavior and your emotions with intent and purpose, to have social awareness of what others are feeling and why they're feeling that way, and social management, which I think is the ability to address other people's emotions, again, with intent and purpose. The purpose being you're trying to advance your position in the game and ultimately win. I think a lot of people have decent emotional intelligence, both in the game and in real life, and you're welcome. That's a compliment for all of you out there. But the trick with this one is in the capacity to remain vigilant, to keep it up, so to speak. I think it's very easy to slip and forget to manage someone, including yourself. There are a lot of balls to juggle in the game, and then suddenly, bad jury management gets brought up, and well, here we go down that rabbit hole. As far as my ranking goes, this is what I've landed on with the current BB27 cast, with 1 being the best and 12 being the worst for this category. Also, I probably should just say this isn't reflective of who these people are outside of the game, just who they are presenting as players in the house, based on my perception over the past 6 weeks. Now, feel free to disagree. I could easily have it wrong. Just note, this is only a quarter of the overall recipe. It isn't the end-all be-all for any one player. And I won't really go over all of these 12 because that would take somewhere in the ballpark of, 10 Ashley showers. But suffice it to say, as of right now, Vince is the standout to me in this regard due to his constant temperature checkups and one-on-ones and just always thinking about what other people are feeling. He is likened to a weasel, but he's also a weasel with a big heart, and that is kind of getting him into a lot of trouble because he doesn't like to impress upon others with what he most wants. And I think that's probably going to reflect in other categories as we keep talking. We'll get back to Vince in a little bit. Conversely, in a strange twist of fate, I do think Riley, despite being in last here, is decent with a lot of other players outside of Kat. It's just that he has these massive love-bombing goggles on for Catherine that are shockingly out of touch with her emotions. It's like the Titanic hitting the iceberg. He's only good until there's a hole in his front side. It's distracting. It makes me wonder what other shortcomings he might have for this category that aren't as noticeable, because he spends like 85% of his time with just her. And when he does, 100% of the time, I think he's dead last. Mickey also scores low here. I don't know if that'll be a shock for many people out there. I think that is currently what is doing her in at the moment. As we are about to see with the next category, there's a bit of a synchronicity. I'm not sure what that actually means. I think that means what I think it means with the categories. They all kind of like weave together to form a final ranking. Mickey's poor handling of the house during Ava's HOH last week has resulted in her game falling apart in week 6, largely due to her inability to read how others are feeling when she whipped out her M&Ms and tried to just like blueprint her way into the jury. It was blunt, and it left a negative impression on many people, yours included, which I think then is a good segue and takes us into the second category, being tactical awareness, also known as the ability to know your role, your position, and utilize tactical steps to solve problems. And guess what? As you can see on the screen, I have Mickey at the top of that ranking. Mickey has been the most tactical player of the season. I think it's kind of hard to tell. This was the of the 4 categories, this was the one I spent the most time staring at, going, what am I smoking? Is this correct? I think it's correct. I don't know if it's, I'm just going to submit it. But I think her lack of emotional intelligence has landed her in a middling position thus far on my list through these 2 categories. What I was talking about earlier, she basically had a low emotional intelligence ability to read others while having a high tactical ability, which caused her to end up in this position here. She's attempting to play at a higher level than necessary with this cast, and I think it's shooting her in the foot via sloppy tactical missteps. But again, she's doing the most of anyone in this cast, and so for this quarter of the recipe, she is on top. Morgan is also in a similar but lesser boat. I think Mickey is by far the most tactical, but Morgan is somewhat of a second in command to her. And of course, she's also in a rough spot because of the combination of these 2 categories coming together, where she's also strong in one and then weak in the other. And just looking at the rest of them here, I think I want to talk quickly about like Kat, for example. I didn't know exactly where to put her because when she's around Riley, it feels like she's barely playing. And through 6 weeks, I do get the impression she isn't really playing. But then when I do see her talking individually, I feel pretty good about her. But then I'm like, what is this really amounting to? So she just kind of keeps dropping. I have Ava lower than I expect many might, largely because her HOH week told me a lot about her ability to be tactical. She basically didn't want to do much other than like put up 3 big targets, close her eyes and ears, and move on to the next week. She prefers to play the Switzerland of the house, which I think I understand is pretty admirable, but those were her words, not mine, by the way, and just kind of coast by. It could very well work, but she isn't really doing much else on a moment-to-moment basis. She's kind of running on vibes, or her aura, as I think we say in 2025. Most of her tactics are driven by emotion and who she gets along with. I worry that will leave her in a bit of a corner by the end game because she isn't really setting herself up strategically while there's still time on her side. But I don't know. I guess I don't really need to talk about Ava that much for this category. She's spoiler, she's going to be higher in other categories coming up. So, you know, she's a TBD. I do think she'll probably go far. And honestly, she could actually win the whole thing. Keanu, I also think, is an interesting case. Keanu scores higher here because he is always on something resembling a 4D chessboard. I think he has a lot of bad reads, and he overshares and just talks down to people and is socially a bit aloof, but I also find him to be considering all options most of the time. He is just ready to put a group together and do the thing, like play a regular season of Big Brother, and everybody just doesn't want to do that here. So I don't know. I don't know if that makes him like the best of the worst or the worst of the best, or I don't know. But then he also just puts his foot in his mouth constantly, and the target swings back to him like right afterward, which is a great segue into category 3. also known as threat level. Now, this is a pretty basic aspect of any player's repertoire, and it involves players not being big threats to get evicted too soon. I know, it's a pretty complicated concept, but look, this game is a marathon, it's not a sprint, and you need to reach the final two to stand a chance to win. If you're the tallest snail, you will usually get the hammer. You don't often want to get the hammer, especially early in the season. You want to mitigate that. Save it for the end game when you have a higher chance to control your own fate, and then sit in front of the jury and say, look, I'm the tallest hammer. Vote for me to win amongst all of these other tools. If others are threatened by you, as they often are with Keanu, you'll face their wrath again and again and again and again and likely again pretty soon. I don't think it should come as a surprise that Keanu is dead last here, with Mickey shooting up to be right behind him after her sloppy gameplay, and then Rachel for just being a 3-time player and a former winner. You know, you walk in as a winner, and people suddenly want you out of the game. What do you expect? You know, I mean, she's suffering from her own success, but what are you gonna do? And to be fair, I do think that she would probably place dead last for this category if I did this for Big Brother 12, and probably close to the bottom for Big Brother 13. So this time might actually be an improvement. And then looking at the other players in this category, I think Lauren is like a wisp in the house. She moves and you might feel a breeze. Did Keanu pass gas or did Lauren walk by? We'll never know. I fear she may be so unthreatening that many will want to take her to the end because she won't be respected enough to garner enough jury votes. Lauren's first half of the game has been slow and cautious, scared of her own shadow, but I do get the sense that she is being deliberate at times too, but just isn't doing a lot right now. And in relation to this category, that's great for her longevity, but it might crush her chances with a forming jury. And I noticed this earlier in the season. She really reminds me of Natalie Tenorelli from Survivor 22 Redemption Island, who was in the final 3 and lost to Boston Rob. And I just was thinking, if Lauren goes on to win Big Brother 27, it only makes me feel like Natalie was robbed of being on Survivor Second Chance. What could have been? Anyway, that's an incredibly random aside, but surprisingly, we are actually going to have Redemption Island pop up again later in this video, so stay tuned. And then looking at a few other names here for the threat level category, I think Ava and Will are in the best spots in this regard, as they have not had almost anyone's guns seriously pointing their way, which means they could last a bit. And given their standing in the other categories and the next category, this could be a winning recipe. And so let's talk about the final category to round out the ingredients in the contender soup, which is respectability, which also can sometimes just go hand in hand with likability. Basically, the question is, how likable or respectable is a player amongst their peers? And this one, I think, seems a little straightforward on paper, but is actually one of the most important, maybe the most important of the 4 categories. And it's often the one that I utilize to break tiebreakers and just propel players into my top 4 more often than not, because I look at it like if a player can't score well in this category, they will almost never win the game regardless of how well they do. It's kind of almost like a Russell Hantz on Survivor, or maybe a little bit like a Paul on Big Brother, although not the best example. Big Brother is also a popularity contest because there are no rules for why a juror should vote any which way, and likability tends to be the default reason. It's kind of the number one reason people ever vote for anyone in any of these shows. It's because they like the person that they get to vote for. Or at least if they don't like any of the 3, then they will serve as respectability. Like, do they respect your game? Your friends respect you, so you put them on the jury so they can give you a lot of money. Could you see your friends rewarding you with $750,000 if you lived with them in a house shut off from the outside world with no technology for an entire summer? If so, I'd rate you pretty high. I have Rachel at the top because if she reaches the final 2, I think she wins. I know there might be some people out there who find that ridiculous, but I think she's got this motherly veteran status on lock and would easily sweep against most others. I also have Keanu in second, if only because if he reaches the final 2, it would be just a wildly major accomplishment that I suspect any jury would have to strongly consider voting for. And he has kind of been leading on Rachel into making that a final two. I would be shocked if that ends up happening. I don't think it will. I do think he would probably lose to her, believe it or not, just because of the fact that I think Rachel has garnered more respect, and knowing who she came in as, making it all the way to the end would be a wild accomplishment. And also, I've already talked about Keanu and his missteps. I do think it will probably catch up to him. On the contrary, I have players like Kelly, Ashley, and Lauren rounding out the bottom because they either get on people's nerves, aren't being remarked upon highly for their current gameplay, or potentially both. When Rachel asked Kelly earlier this week on the live feeds if she had seen Survivor 22 Redemption Island featuring Boston Rob and Philip Shepard, I felt that. I picked up what Rachel was putting down. And so altogether, that is my recipe. Those are my gut reads for the cast of Big Brother 27 in conjunction with what I think it takes to be considered a true contender. And so when I've added all 4 categories together, with the lowest score being better and the highest score being you scored at the bottom of them, adding it all up, the final results take shape and give us this: a top 2 between Will and Vince, which I personally find to be quite fitting. Of course, there's no top dog here. There's no one true contender. On paper, I guess I will have to lock it in for Will or Vince. Maybe they'll find a way to tie at the end of that, if that's even possible. That's what the numbers are telling me, and the numbers don't lie. Do I trust them? Remember at the top of the video, I was looking at the final results and saying, I'm not sure what to think of this. Do I trust these? And if I didn't, could I even go so far as to say I don't trust myself? I mean, look, we have Riley and Kelly at the bottom. There's a cluster of people in the middle. You can argue a spot here or there, but overall, this all reads fairly accurately to how I feel after 6 weeks of this cast. I guess, okay, so I guess I do agree with myself, but I can't shake the feeling that something doesn't sit right. And if I really dig into what that feeling says, I think beyond the numbers and everything I just said in this video, while I would normally tell you, there you go, that's my ranking, those are my top picks, move on over, Doc, that's Captain Will for you. I think the reality is for the first time in 14 years of doing this, my takeaway for Big Brother 27 is that there just aren't any true contenders. Nobody stands out. They're all just contenders. That's it. I can dissect the parts of them that I find most worthy, but in the end, it might just be as simple as this. In a house where anything goes, where your closest ally being HOH means you're in the most trouble, any of these players can win, and that's the truth I need to accept. That, I think, is the feeling that doesn't sit right. It's very unusual. I don't usually think that. Is it possible for nobody to win? Can I look at the rule book for the show? Regardless, I will still stand on my desk, proud as can be, and say, oh, Captain, my Captain. Ultimately, thank you to my patrons for all your support, and thank you all for watching. It all came full circle in the end with that Dr. Will speech after all. I hope you enjoyed the video, and don't forget to carefully descend from your desk on your way out if you know, you know. I don't want to be held liable for any injuries, and I will see you in the next one once I sweat buckets trying to figure out where I will be ranking the winning game for whoever is about to win this season of Big Brother. Also, that's my next video series, so strap in.
Slide on up, then they let me out. They say this bull's pretty strong, but hey, I'm pretty stout. Back to the right, yeah, that's what they told me. Buddy went left, shoot, just asked my homie. Top of the standings, me, that's who you gon' see. I ain't just playing, shoot, I'm on that win spree. Turn on the TV, yeah, that's where you'll see me. World champion, yeah, that's what I'm gonna be. Bring out them bulls, bring out them checks. We're raking on these both sides with the Bronx getting their necks. Headed to these big towns, on these bright lights, winning all this cash on them weekend nights.